Usually all actors and actresses are divided into three categories: good, bad, and will come down from film to film. There is a migration of different representatives between these categories. Well, because in one movie everyone can consider an actor talented, and in the next mediocre, but there is another category of actors called Ryan Reynolds. Hello everyone, the Cinesfaction channel is with you, and today we will tell you about the career of Ryan Reynolds. Subscribe to our channel to watch more videos about movies. Many people don't really like this category. Someone because she is Canadian, and someone thinks that Ryan Reynolds always plays Ryan Reynolds and there is nothing good about it. Dwayne Johnson is also in this category of actors. Now they are even filming together, and no matter how funny it is, the Ryan Reynolds actor category is currently the highest paid in Hollywood. But recently, Ryan was already preparing to be introduced into B-movies, but like several other notable actors, Ryan was able to rise from the ashes and now he is one of the highest paid actors in Hollywood. He was naturally very lucky with the changes in the world associated with the dominance of streaming and a lot of gold that different services throw at poorly lying actors. It is also a very good achievement to be in the first row so that the bulk of the gold flies at you. In general, today I would like to recall this category of actors, and one of its most prominent representatives was born in Canada and his career did not develop very rapidly, to put it mildly. He began acting in the early 90s, but most of his roles were an appearance on the second fifth plan in some kind of series like The X-Files. His voice appeared above the water only in the early noughties, when the youth comedy National Lampoon's Van Wilder was released in the US. Yes, Ryan also got into Hollywood from youth comedies with an adult rating, which blew up the American rental in the early noughties. Reynolds himself doesn't particularly like to think about this movie. The actor claims that he did not even look at it and saw only a black and white version made on his knee, after which he decided that this would be enough. National Lampoon's Van Wilder did not become a breakthrough of the American Pie level, but with its budget of $5 million, the film collected $38 million, and Ryan Reynolds received a nomination from MTV in the Breakthrough of the Year category. Life began to improve dramatically. From various TV series, Reynolds moved to the background in Hollywood films. He began to be offered technical projects like the Film School of Life. Canadian projects even began to take him on the main role. However, there were no successes here. At this moment, Ryan tried to distance himself a little from the roles of a cute young guy around whom girls jump and signed up for the movie Blade 3. However, as many people remember, Reynolds' attempt turned out to be unsuccessful, and instead of showing himself from some other side, Ryan had to run around the playground from the evil Wesley Snipes, who appointed Reynolds and the director of the film as the main culprits of the chaos happening on the playground. Officially, it is believed that Reynolds ran faster than Snipes and did not receive any injuries other than psychological ones. Well, Blade 3 got the lowest audience ratings in the franchise and completely failed at the box office. After that, Wesley Snipes' career was basically over. By the way, despite the fact that there was no breakthrough in Reynolds' career, everything could have ended even more sadly. According to rumors, Reynolds really wanted to play the main role in the film Son of the Mask, and only at the finish line he was passed by Jamie Kennedy. One can only guess what could have happened to Reynolds' career, and if you look from this side, then running after him on the court is as evil if Snipes looks not so scary anymore. Since Reynolds ran in the third Blade in the background, he did not suffer much, or maybe he did not have time to suffer at all, since the actor released 3 projects at once the following year and all 3 were successful at the box office. Amityville Horror was the first to arrive at the cinema. This film is known not only for the fact that such a talented actor as Ryan Reynolds starred in it, but also for the fact that it was the last film of MGM Studio as an independent distributor. Later, it will be taken over by Sony Studio, which will deal with by renting her films. These days, this studio has already been outbid by Amazon. And it's also the first film by actress Chloe Grace Moretz. Ryan Reynolds also contributed to the movie. He wore contact lenses to look more severe and sinister. It seemed to the authors of the film that the actor would not scare anyone with his usual eye color. So he was ordered to use dark lenses. At the box office, a kind of continuation of the series of films Amityville collected $108 million with a budget of $19 million. The romantic comedy Just Friends followed him to the American cinema. Although the $15 million project bounced back, bringing $51 million, the studio did not dare to squeeze something else out of the film. After all, the financial indicators were not so impressive. At the end of 2005, another comedy with Reynolds fell out in the procat, namely Big Grub. Here the success was even more modest. The film grossed only $18 million, but it also cost only $3. Ryan, however, did not like the fact that he was inundated with offers of roles in various comedies, and he decided to become an even more talented actor. Therefore, he began to abandon such scenarios. The actor immediately signed up for the films Chaos Theory and Devyatka. Both bypassed wide distribution and, having released on a couple of screens, immediately went to the media. Nines was shown in 5 cinemas in the USA. And Chaos Theory immediately at 11, where they collected $300,000 for 2. Something similar happened with the films Bumajni Man and Fireflies. These films also turned out to be of no use to anyone. True, Ryan signed up for supporting roles in them, and after their fiasco, he was usually not remembered. But everything was not so bad in 2007. The Trump Aces were released. They performed well, although the studio expected more, which is why the options for the continuation of the film were considered even before it was released. He collected $57 million with a budget of $17. We can also mention the film Yes, It Is Possible. He, with his budget of $24 million, collected $55, and the bonuses here to Ryan did not come because of box office achievements. They are quite modest. The film has again become a cult landmark in the USA. That is, Reynolds films, which no one noticed, had budgets of $3 to $4 million, and their failures did not particularly harm the actor, and it is difficult to call the actor's more expensive films unsuccessful because of various nuances. This tactic bore fruit in 2009. Ryan got into 2 big projects at once, one of which will save his career in the future. It's funny that Ryan was taken to Rozamaku without any casting and took him there because of the failed movie Blade 3 and the comedic roles of the actor from which he wanted to get rid of. According to a common story, the authors of the film wanted to take on the role of Wade Wilson, an actor who usually infuriates everyone, and after braving famous young actors, they came to the conclusion that Ryan Reynolds is the one who infuriates them the most. Reynolds was not told about this, so he immediately agreed to star in a pre-horn comic, especially since he was hinted at options with a solo album for his character. The film did not perform very well, but X-Men Origins: Wolverine is considered one of the most affected films due to an early pirated release that took place even before the film was shown in the cinema theater. There were unfinished special effects. The network was quickly flooded with stories about what kind of garbage it was, after all, and not a movie. That is, although the film collected only $373 million with a budget of $150, the studio reflected and wrote off the shortage at the box office for Pirates, still gave the go-ahead for another solo album for Hugh Jackman in a couple of years. Well, and the second film, Ryan's 2009 comedy, was The Proposal. This is another film by Sandra Bullock, which she signed up for after Julia Roberts refused, and another film that became a great success after that. And Reynolds got into the cinema, too, thanks to Sandra Bullock. They got to know each other back in the late 90s and claimed that they often talked after that and even became friends. So when Sandra signed up for the film, she offered to take on the male lead role of Ryan Reynolds. Because of this moment, several problems arose on the set. Sandra did not want to go away for one of the scenes of the film, as it was inconvenient for her to do it together with a good friend. Reynolds claims that he was also against it for the same reasons. However, Ryan's opinion hardly interested anyone then. The episode was tried to be filmed in underwear, and Sandra says that the filmed episode was so bad that she still decided to undress. Reynolds, of course, also immediately changed his mind and was no longer against it. The Proposal, with a budget of $40 million, collected $317 million, and Reynolds was inundated with offers after 2009. Deciding that the poorly performed Wolverine meant the end of his career as Wade Wilson, he signed up for another superhero film, Green Lantern, and at the same time for another project in which he already wanted to demonstrate that he was a real actor and capable of his own. Carry films On Your Shoulders. This film was buried alive. It was shot in just 17 days and earned $19 million at the box office with a budget of $3. Most of this budget settled in the pocket of Ryan Reynolds. On the set of Blade, Ryan wanted to beat Wesley Snipes then on. Ryan already wanted to beat the director of the film with his feet and hands, since he was humiliated and insulted throughout the filming process for not being like Bradley Cooper. All these conflicts on the set before shooting with reshoots led to the fact that the film was supposed to launch the DC universe. But after getting into the Procat, the studio chose to forget this film, because it collected only $219 million with a budget of $200, becoming one of the most painful failures for Warner in its history. Ryan himself has repeatedly admitted to being jealous of this tape, and, according to him, he was incredibly happy after the failure. He said it was true a few years later, but because to understand how true his words are, it's hard sometimes. But this failure hit. But even before he got to the cinema, he managed to subscribe to 2 projects, Safe House and The Change Up. He was invited to Safe House by Denzel Washington not because they are some great friends, it's just that Denzel is a very influential actor in the USA and usually he chooses his own partners in his films and for some reason, he chose Reynolds from the stack of photos. More precisely, the reason for the press sounded corny. Reynolds is a talented guy and was elected only for this reason. Initially, I wanted to shoot a movie in Rio. Naturally, favelas and the most prominent places of the Brazilian city had to be involved. Ryan had already penetrated into the Brazilian reality and began to blend in with the crowd, but the last film changed its name and decided to shoot in Cape Town. It seems that Denzel has heard rumors that the favelas are unsafe and local hooligans may try to take over the body of the star actor. He couldn't afford to take that risk. Once, because of the same danger, the authors of the fifth Fast and Furious moved the shooting from Rio to Puerto Rico. The family could not afford such a risk either. Because of all these production stops, changes to the script of the film were problematic and at some point the studio even wanted to replace director Daniel Espinosa, who, according to studio bosses, could not cope. But even here Denzel did not allow this to be done and insisted that the director finish shooting. The cinema at the box office Safe House performed modestly with a budget of $85 million, it collected $208 million. Conversations about the sequel of this film have repeatedly surfaced in the press and Ryan Reynolds has constantly expressed his desire to run away in it at the first call, but the matter has not gone beyond conversations yet. But the comedy The Change-Up has already completely failed at the box office, collecting only $75 million with a budget of $52. Well, then Ryan's situation became completely unhealthy. In 2013, the R.I.P.D. sank at the box office with loud screams. This film is a typical problematic movie with reshoots, conflicts and all that usually happens with projects that are already being released before they are released. Ryan Reynolds and Jeff Bridges claimed that the movie could have been great, but the studio intervened in the production with its test cases and cut the tape to some completely deranged state, and what got into cinemas was not at all what they were shooting. They shot something outstanding, and what we all saw, they couldn't even watch because of tears, what they couldn't finish watching. The film collected only $78 million with a budget of $130. Reynolds' career was no longer just going downhill, but flying into the abyss. His next film is The Captive, in which Ryan again wanted to show that he was an actor removed from the rental, in almost all countries of the world. And in the States, they were released only in a limited rental, after which the tape went to the media. His next film, the crime comedy of His Voice, also flew there. It was simply not delivered to American cinemas, it was released only in several European markets, where it collected as much as $2 million with a budget of $11, and here we need to return to the film X-Men Origins, Wolverine. Although the film was heavily criticized by Reynolds' character, it was often while Lily and Ryan repeatedly stated to the press about his desire to get a solo album for this hero, but then he signed up for Green Lantern from a rival superhero company and it became dangerous to talk about Deadpool. When the Lantern was finished and there was no question of any continuation, Ryan again seized his chance. In various interviews, he supported anyone's demands for the Fox studio to produce a film about this character. The studio has always refused to do this. In those years, it was written that Fox simply did not believe in such a project. Everything changed when the founder of Blur Studio Tim Millard joined Ryan with Screams. He assembled a spectacular video at the facilities of his studio, which was engaged in cinematics, which was supposed to demonstrate to Fox what the future film could be. The studio liked this 2-minute excerpt, but for some time they still did not give the go-ahead for the production of films due to disagreements. It changed after it was leaked to the network. The viewers' reaction was strictly positive and Deadpool got the go-ahead to shoot. The scene from this video will later receive a remake in the film itself. But before the release of Deadpool, Ryan continued to bury himself. In 2015, Out of Myself failed at the box office, which barely collected $31 million with a budget of $26 million, and then The Criminal drowned, where he had a modest role. The only exception was the drama The Woman in Gold, where all the critics and the audience praised Helen Mirren. In general, if Deadpool, which hit the big screens in 2016, suddenly decided to break out, Ryan would undoubtedly have gone to star in various original films and maybe even managed to work with Nicholas Coppola. But the film collected $782 million with a budget of $58, and it was this film that brought back the fashion for adult-rated comics, proving to studios that they can earn crazy money at the box office. The direction of Ryan's career has changed dramatically, and his next film, The Killer's Bodyguard, which had a very modest budget of $30 million, collected $183 million at the box office. It was because of this film that Reynolds left the foreground in the film Alive. Although Ryan received $8 million for his participation and the film lived as a result, it did not matter. The second Deadpool, which arrived in cinemas in 2018 with a budget of $110 million already, collected $734 million at the box office. Yes, the studio earned less than in the first picture, but still the numbers of the project showed excellent. Here I would like to note one point that does not look very nice from the outside. The first film was directed by Tim Miller, the one who helped launch Deadpool by assembling cinematics at the facilities of his studio. That is, theoretically, the first film could not take place without his help. When working on the sequel, Ryan Reynolds moved him and replaced him with another director. Officially, it happened because of creative differences. Miller wanted a larger-scale sequel, and Reynolds insisted on the locality of what was happening. According to rumors, Ryan just wanted to influence the film more, and Miller was a hindrance. In general, the situation from the outside does not look very great, but what actually happened from the sofa is not visible. Ryan began to shoot much more accurately, and the situation with the stream, which captures the world, played into his hands. His career took off in just a couple of years, and all this coincided with the same rise of streaming and overlapped with the story of the virus. So the actor, not having had time to star in some cinema projects, went to visit Netflix, which began to pay the soaring actor crazy money. For The Ghostly Six, Ryan received $27 million for the next project. For the streaming giant Red Notices, he received $25 million. Nearby, however, the sequel Bodyguard of a Killer completely failed, which collected $71 million with a budget of $70, but the main character worked well nearby, which mastered $31 million with a budget of $130 million. It is not known how much Reynolds earned for his latest film for Netflix, The Adam Project, but since, according to official data, he soared to third place in views in the entire history of the service, it can be assumed that the cooperation between the service and Ryan will continue. Now Ryan has several big projects in his plans, one of which is the third Deadpool, and in theory nothing bad can happen to the actor's career in the near future. The Cinesfaction channel was with you. Subscribe to our channel to watch more videos about cinema. Also don't forget to like and enable notifications.